I've drawn a line right down both sides of the keelson, 1.5 inches from the edge. That's how much bearing I want the planking to have on the keelson. Now, I may have referred to that keelson as the keel before, but it's not really the keel. The keel is the one that's between the planks. This is the piece of wood that the plank's bearing on. So it would be the keelson in this situation, and the keel is going on it next. Now I've got another straight edge that I'm working with here, and I have to continually stop as I'm planing and check it with the straight edge, because it's not the same angle everywhere, and I just have to be very careful that I get that progression going properly. And once you get it going properly, it's a little easier to keep it going properly. So I can't just work in one spot. I have to work my way along, because otherwise I'm working like in a hollow, and that doesn't work with the electric plane. So you have to stretch it out a little bit, and as you stretch it, you also have to change the angle of your plane. So it's a little difficult, but it's certainly easier than anything else that you might want to attempt. Any kind of hand tools or any kind of other power tools or anything like that. This is the way to go right here. Just make sure that you don't go past the line that you've made, the 1.5 inch line, because if you've done that, you've made a mistake.
Rolling.
Once I've got close enough with the electric plane, I'm just going to cash that in and pick up a hand plane. Now, the hand plane's a little different because I have to get on my hands and knees and I have to push. You know, the electric plane, all I really have to do is guide it along. But, you know, this has got a little bit better control. It goes at a little tiniest bit slower, so I'm just being careful, and I'm using the hand plane to finish it up. I want to get that angle exactly the way I want it. Now, this is the piece right here that I would call the keel itself. So what I'm going to do is clamp this keel down on top of the keelson. Now, I'm going to put it in place. I've already cut a 45-degree angle on it, the right width. It's a keel and keelson. The two pieces form the rabbit, but the piece of wood itself is kind of snaky. You know, none of these pieces of wood, oak, can you cut straight and have it remain straight, like I've said many times before. So I'm going to center it up really nice, get the same measurement on both sides, and clamp it down nice and tight, and then I'm going to mark it for bevel with another type of gauge. I'm going to take this stick right here, and I've got it cut into like a little gauge. I'm going to put it right underneath there so it feels that corner right in there, see? And then I'm going to mark it right here. So, yeah, so this is our next little step right here. We are going to get the angle of the rabbet on the keel. Now, we have a keelson and a keel. This being the keelson, this is actually the keel because it's the piece of wood that's between the two planks, the garboard planks or the planking on both sides. It doesn't have garboard planks because it's longitudinally, it's not longitudinally planked, it's cross planked. So, you know, basically, like I say, that's the keelson, this is the keel, and we're trying to get this angle exactly right on it. So I've made this marking gauge, and I'm just going down here, making a few quick marks that I can connect up with a line, and then I'm going to plane it from this point to this point. And it's a progression of bevel. Everything on this boat is a progression of bevel. So, okay. Now I've got our keel over on the three-legged horses against the wall there, and I'm just connecting up the marks with a little 3-foot yardstick right here. And once I get those marks all connected up, I'm going to darken that line up as good as I can, and then I'm going to take a black magic marker and go down the other edge. Now this is the edge that I don't want to disturb, so I'm going to disturb some of that black magic marker. You know, as I plane that bevel down, you'll see that narrow up and narrow up, but I'm not going to make it quite disappear. I'm going to plane down right down to both of those lines simultaneously. Now that's a little bit tricky, especially if you don't have like a handle on the plane, and which I do have. I have that drain piece that's on the chute of my plane sticking out, and it allows me to sense the angle of the plane very easily as I go along. I can progressively change the height of my left hand, which changes the angle of the plane as I plane it. Now, without a plane handle, I'll tell you, I just couldn't do it. I could get kind of close, but I'd be kind of, you know, guessing at it, and I'd have to work at it a whole lot more with the hand plane afterwards. I can't believe this. There we go. All right, now. Now I've picked up my number 5, and I'm going to go along and tune it up with a number 5. It's not like I don't have a little left to go here, so this is the tool to finish it up really nicely with. Ooh. It's like a razor, you know? You gotta be careful. That edge that's on the left side of that piece is sharp, like really sharp. I actually did nick myself a little bit with it, but it wasn't bad. You know, on one side, you're sneaking down on that black magic marker line. You can't take the whole thing away, but you can take some of it. And you may work that side for a little bit, and then you're going to work the other side. And then once you're satisfied that you're just about as close on both sides, well, then you can kind of take a swipe. But you also have to keep in mind that it's not flat one end or the other. It's a progression of bevels, so you're also twisting this thing as you're planing it. You know, you're going to get as close as you can possibly get. And I'm doing sort of the same thing with the hand plane as I do with the electric plane. I've got the plane across the piece, you see, and I'm skewing the plane along. You can see the little marks that I made right here with a little scratch mark on it, and the line along there. I haven't taken the line off. I've come up very close to it. I'm close enough. I'm going to put it in place and then take a rabbit plane to it, and that'll square it right off perfect. That's it. Done. Well, that was quite an accomplishment right there, and I think you can tell that it was done kind of in an unconventional manner, really. You know, I generated all these progressive bevels and all of this twisting and all this stuff with an electric plane. I don't know the degrees of it. All I know is it's right, you know, and you know, this is the way you do it when you're building a boat like this, a skiff like this. You get to design it a little bit as you go, you know, whether it's the shape of the boat or the details, you know, the way it goes together. I mean, you can do it all on a drawing board and stick right with it. You could do it on a drawing board and then alter it as you go along. But what we've done is we've gotten the lines of the boat off the model, and all the bevels and all of that stuff is generated actually right here while you're building it. So, you know, it's been a bit of work. The next thing for us to do is put a web in it from the keelson right here down to the sole to support the sole, so the two will become one. Then we're going to put an intermediate on each side about halfway between here and the chine log to support the bottom, actually, because the sole is stiff enough it doesn't really need any support. So that's what we're up to, and I've got a little bit more work to do up forward. I'm just going to go at it a little bit more with my rabbit plane and call it a day. I know I said I was going to quit right after doing some of this planing, but after I got done, I'm looking at the keel and I decided that I would unclamp it and take it into my ship saw because, you know, I always wanted to make this thing out of 2 layers, and then I started thinking, well, it's a little too difficult, but I want that first layer of fiberglass to go right across the center line, so I'm just going to resaw it right in half. That's the way I really wanted it. It's the beauty of the whole thing, because if you decide that maybe there's no strict plans or anything that I have to adhere to here, you know, it would be my idea and I get to do it any way I want. I've got a fence set up alongside the bandsaw blade, and I also have a feather board. Now the feather board, or springboard, or whatever you might want to call it, is set up, and it's set up pretty tight because I have a very short fence, and you could teeter that piece across the corners of the fence, and get a squirrely kind of cut. So you want to have it sprung up there nice and tight so you can't migrate off that fence no matter what. And it makes it a little bit hard to push actually, but it's not the cutting that makes it hard, it's the springing against the fence that makes it difficult. So like I say, the piece isn't perfectly straight, and I want to make sure I split it right down the middle. I don't want to have the middle cut straighter or anything than the outside. I want it to follow the shape of the outside on both sides, and that's exactly what I'm going to get. The bandsaw does not drift. I'll go into that someday, why it doesn't drift and how it's set up and that kind of stuff. But you know, now as I push it through, I've got someone helping me on the other end, and it's Andrew. Andrew's going to go around the other side of the bandsaw when it's time, and then as I get closer and closer to the fence, he'll just pull the thing right through, because I don't want to get my hands too close. But you can see the fence protrudes out this side of the blade a little bit. Anything different than that, you would stand a chance of cutting your hand if you had it on top of that piece that you're ripping. So, you know, it's kind of a nice setup, works perfectly, and it gets the job done. Well, we're just back from resawing a Keel piece right down the middle into 2 layers, and I'm going to show you why I've done that and how it lays out across the center line, what I'm going to do with the center line. Later on, I'm going to be showing you some details of how it all goes together at the chine log and how it's glassed and everything, but the center line is our concern right now. The first thing I'm going to have to do before I start planking the bottom is put a longitudinal stringer right down through here. Now it's going to go the length of the boat, and obviously it's going to get a little bit taller down at the other end, and then I have to bevel it off and make it fit perfectly, and then we're going to start planking the bottom. The first layer of planking goes right up to that first layer of keel, just like that. Now, the first layer of keel would be glued right down to the keelson. The first layer of planking is going to be nailed onto the keelson, glued down and nailed with some very small anchor-fast nails. The next thing for us to do is put 1 layer of 1708 fiberglass cloth across the boat in this direction, and after that, we're going to put a second layer of keel down on top of it while that fiberglass cloth is still wet, and we're going to fasten that down. The next thing for us to do is start applying our second layer of planking like that, and that butts up to the keel just like that. After that's accomplished and screwed down with some nice bronze screws, it'll be incredibly strong. We're going to put 2 layers of 1708 fiberglass cloth across the whole thing just like that. Now, this is pretty nice because all the grain orientation is going right straight across. And it doesn't have any corners in it or anything like that, because that would be impossible. It would be resin starved, or we'd have all kinds of problems with that. We can't do that. We're going to put the grain right straight across. I don't think this is something that's been done exactly like this before, so it's a little bit new, but I think that that is going to make this boat incredibly strong. Now, the next thing I want to do is go back to this tool right here. Now, I'm going to take this sheath off that a friend of mine made for her, and I remember where I found this hammer now. It's taken me quite a bit of work to really remember it, but I found this in a stone wall years ago. It was just buried amongst the rocks in a stone wall. So I kind of thought at the time it had something to do with stonework, but I wasn't sure. And I sharpened it myself like this to try to use it as a little adze, and it was successful, but not as successful as I'd like it to be. Now, many people said that this is a Cooper's adze, but I don't believe it. I don't understand what you would use this for in cooperage. So, you know, I tend to believe that Alex Hammond was the first person who said that he thought this was a cobblestone hammer. Now, I think he's right. This end right here, when I first found the thing, it wasn't even sharpened. It was very dull. And I think that what it's for is to clip a little slot in a cobblestone or a granite boulder, and then around the ends, and then you take this end and you smack it real hard and it'll snap off in a straight line for making cobblestones. Now, this end right here, you could reach over the cobblestones and disrupt the gravel or the cement or whatever you're putting the cobblestone in, and then set the cobblestone and then set it down with this so you can hammer it down in place. If you had to remove it and scrape at the gravel a little bit, you would do that and then set the stone again and hammer it down. Now, I believe that's what it's for, and I think there was quite a few people actually that were onto it, And, you know, I could be wrong. We're not positive about this tool, but it's pretty cool because, you know, I think it's going to go on forever here. People are going to be commenting on it. And the next thing I'm going to do is bring out another tool that's a little complicated as well. So we'll be getting into this tool stuff. But we're going to be going back to the boat here. The next thing for us to do on the boat is to put these longitudinal stringers in it and a web on the center line under the keelson and just get back to work.